Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are excited to be here with Modern Classrooms, and I will turn it over to Michael and Kate. I know probably a couple more people are hopping on from the other room, but um, you can decide when you're ready to get started and jump on in. We're excited to have you today, and I'm excited to learn because I've been really curious about your work.
Right on. Should we go ahead and get started then, Amy? We're good to go?
I think we're good to go.
All right. Well, thank you everybody who's joining us um, to learn about centering students, actionable insights from a modern classroom. And I'm Michael Hakarainen. I get to travel a lot for my job, and you can probably see a little famous house from not too far from where you are, Amy. Anybody guess? Come off mute. Guess what house is that?
Is that the Brady
Wow.
Bunch?
There must be, that's the Brady Bunch house. I was gonna say there must be nobody in the Zoom room who's over 50, but anyway, yeah. So there's the Brady Bunch house. I'm a partnerships director with the Modern Classrooms Project. I'm based out of Utah, and I get to support teachers all over the country. So I'm really excited to be here in Minnesota, and thank you to Education Evolving for having us, and the Bush Foundation, who's not only funding you guys, but also funding us and our work in Minnesota that we'll dive into here in just a little bit. As you can see there on the Zoom screen is Kate Klug. Well, there's three students there from Apollo High School. We'll get to meet them in just a second, but I am joined today to present with Kate Klug, who is a secondary innovation coach with the St. Cloud School District 742. And Kate, I'll let you tell us a little bit about yourself and your cycling experience as we see here in the picture.
My current cycling experience is zero because I just had knee surgery. But hi, I'm Kate Klug, innovation coach for our secondary schools in St. Cloud. I work with teachers on anything innovative. We specifically have focused some of our energy on modern classroom projects, so implementing that in our schools
Oh,
with our
exciting.
and we have also spent some time looking at AI and how we can implement that with our students. So that's kind of been our focus for the past couple of years. And we're really excited to be here. I have some students who are super excited to share with you their experiences with Modern Classrooms Project.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you to the students who joined us. I promise to get you to your lunch by 12:20, correct? Thumbs up if that's cool. Right on. Just so you know who I am, you know who Kate is. Amy, did you need to jump in? No, okay. I want to know if you know who Modern Classrooms is. And since it's May, Star Wars month, I made this little sort of like assessment for you to check in with me. How familiar are you with the Modern Classrooms project? If you've never heard of us, if you're terrified, you're Luke Skywalker. No spoiler alerts here as to what happened in that picture, but give me a one. If you've never heard of us, just put it in the chat there real quick. If you're curious but a little cautious, like you think you know what we do, throw in there a number two. If we have any Wookiees, right? Chewbacca, you know this, but maybe you could learn more. That would be a three. And if we have a Han Solo like Kate, somebody who's an expert on the Modern Classrooms project and student, I see Emily is a four. Han Solo, you got this covered, you know this. I also see Alyssa and Gretchen are fours. Super. So that gives me an idea of how much I should talk about our model and how much we should just turn it over to the students and let them talk about what they're doing. Let me give you just a little bit of background first. If you didn't know, Modern Classrooms Project is a nonprofit. Everybody you see in this picture are about 40 people on staff are all former educators. And then we have a couple hundred teachers who work as mentors. They are classroom teachers who help train other teachers, not technically employees, but they get paid to do that. And we'll dive into that in just a second. About 2/3 of our funding comes from philanthropists. And then about a third of it comes from partner schools and districts like St. Cloud, who we work with. We also employ those teachers to be mentors. And I just want to clarify that not only are we a nonprofit, but we are an opt-in only model. We have come up with an instructional model that's designed to free up teacher time to allow teachers to build stronger connections with their students. And it works when students believe in student-centered learning and the benefits of like personalized competency-based learning. So we are opt-in only. In other words, if you're looking for a high-pressure sales presentation, you're in the wrong place. You're not going to get it. Little background about us. We were founded by two math teachers from Eastern High School, which is in the Capitol Hill neighborhood of Washington, D.C. Kareem Farrar is our CEO, and Robert Barnett. The two of them were teaching together, and they were getting frustrated with the way PD didn't really match with what they needed in their classrooms. They were getting a lot of instruction on things like differentiated instruction, but there was never a how to it. And they found that standing at the front of the room lecturing, like I'm doing right now, was not the best way to connect with students. I do have a quick video here made by St. Cloud School District featuring Kate, and I'm going to play it for you guys. It's about 4 minutes long. And this will just kind of give you an idea of what our model looks like and how it works before we dive into the benefits and the alignment to student-centered learning and hear from our students. So let's make sure that, Amy, I got this set up correctly. You're hearing it?
The Modern Classroom Project is an educational approach that explores personalized learning and technology to boost student engagement. The three main components include blended learning, which allows students to review lessons in small chunks using technology, self-paced learning, which allows students to move at a pace that best meets their needs. If they are comfortable with the topic, they can move faster. If they need more supports, they can slow down. Finally, mastery-based learning, which allows students to progress when they have shown they understand the topic and reduce gaps that may come up in future lessons.
I chose to do Modern Classroom because I think that it really helps students set the pace and set the ability that they can do to differentiate their learning and advocate for their own learning. So just being able to think about how much do I want to learn, how am I going to engage in what I'm learning, and then how far can I push myself. The biggest things that I've had to change are how I present learning. So being able to think about how each piece of the things that I'm teaching, how it can be differentiated and how it can be laid out in a way that makes sense to work on your own at that self-pace, but also providing them enough scaffolding and enough opportunities to kind of push themselves beyond and meet up where they need to be. So deepen their understanding, but also make it so that they can do it on their own. So I really imagine a world and a learner community where students are engaged and pushing themselves. The students get to self-pace through each of their assignments and through each of their lessons, and it's really important that they can do it at their own pace because it really sets up this advocacy and this differentiated learning for them. So if they need to rewatch videos and rewatch pieces of videos, they can get subtitles if they need them, and it really allows them to deepen their understanding to what they need. So if they want to keep exploring and go further in their learning, then they can go into a should do or an aspire to do. But if they really just want to stick with where we're at in our learning, then they can stay with the must do's and work through it at their own pace. Ultimately, the goal for all students is to reach mastery, and through the self-paced learning, they are able to reach mastery in new ways because they can move through the lessons at their own pace. So if they need to reteach or relearn, they can go back and look at those lessons.
The mastery checks, we've implemented that across the board with all of the classes. Fundamental shift. I can't speak more highly about the idea of using mastery-based learning. The progress that I have seen students make, the change in their attitude about education and their own ability to succeed, it's just crazy. It's mind-blowing. You really got to feel out the needs of the kids in the room, what's going to work, does it make sense for this particular unit. You try the assignment, you're confused, well, guess what? You can still go back. You know, there's no part of it where you're like, well, you're lost, sorry. Oh, you missed today. And that's something that I've felt has always been a struggle. It's always something you feel a lot of guilt about. You don't have that anymore because it's there. And the way that we have set it up is 80% is considered mastery. It's a B. If you get an 80% and you want to try for more, great, please do. But if you don't get 80%, it's not, oh, you didn't understand the content, you failed the test, now we're moving on without you. It's now what do we do? It's a solutions-based approach rather than just saying, oh well, that was your shot. So we do a lot of one-on-one. We do a lot of small group. We do a lot of pair work. We have people come to Eagle Time. And so sometimes the second attempt will be like a different format. Sometimes it's the same format. You just have some tutoring or we review your notes with you before you give it a second go. I can't think of a single person that we have had reattempt a mastery check who has failed or has ended up with anything less than like a 90% the second go around. I imagine it's a fundamental shift. There's not a culture of like fear of failure. There's not a culture of, I don't get this, so I'm just going to curl into myself. It's getting things wrong is okay. We can try again. It's honestly kind of beautiful.
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. I love showing this video because I get goosebumps every time. You guys are so lucky to go to St. Cloud. I see the big smiles, and there was lots of great catchphrases in there. If you're thinking about something that really stood out to you in that video, like maybe an instructional practice that looked like, oh, that's a home run, or like an aha or a question, throw it in the chat, and Kate and I will answer them as we go through. But I just want to point out, St. Cloud is one of many school districts in Minnesota that are currently partnering with us. And thanks to the Bush Foundation, we do have a scholarship. Over 900 educators in Minnesota have enrolled in our virtual mentorship program, which I'll explain in a few minutes. Oops, that's our free course there as well. And we have over 40 different school districts represented. We've surveyed the teachers who've worked with us and had tremendous feedback, like a 9.12 out of 10 overall, and 95% recommend the program to their colleague. And if you look down here in this little bar graph, you'll see before and after from our training, and huge jumps from like 50% or lower up to the high 90s as to how to know how to plan a self-paced unit of study, how to assess students on mastery, having a clear vision for how students learn, knowing how to create high quality instructional videos, and how they're going to use technology with their students. Looking in the chat, nobody has any ahas to share. Come on, that was literally a goosebump video. Just to give you an idea of what our model looks like, a lot of times when you hear about student-centered learning, there's like this profile of a graduate or portrait of a learner. There's like dozens and dozens of effective teaching strategies. We keep ours really simple. It's all about leveraging blended instruction in order to create student pace structures to allow students to move at their own pace, and then have mastery-based learning. And I'll unpack these a little bit. Let's start with the blended instruction. In the video, you saw students watching videos. That's a big part of it because that's what allows a teacher to minimize whole class lectures. Teachers are creating the original content themselves. We don't like to recommend that you use something like Khan Academy necessarily all the time, because students then start to think, who's the expert in the room? It's this person named Khan, but the expert should be the teacher in the room. And that also lends itself to when a teacher sends videos that students can access at home, then the parents start to hear the teacher's voice, see the teacher's face, and make those connections. The idea is to make sure that students have access to instruction at all times. And to my friends in St. Cloud, the kids that are watching, go ahead and unmute for a second because I have my first question for you. When your teachers are using instructional videos, about how long are they? Like an hour, hour and a half?
They're about like from 5 minutes to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Keep it short, right? Do you find yourselves like watching like multiple videos in a day, or just like one or two at a time? How often are you like actually watching a video?
You watch a video for every lesson, so it depends on how your pace is going. If you have one lesson one day, then you do that, and then if you're done, then you go ahead and do the other one.
Do you guys ever go back and watch a video like a second time or do anything like that?
Yeah, I have. I have.
Do you want to tell them why you would do that?
Well, sometimes I like to go back just to make sure if I'm doing like in the right way. So I don't want to like mess up and then I could just have like watch the video again instead of wondering if I did it right or something.
Gotcha.
Can you hear them okay?
Yeah, they sound great. Everything's perfect. And there's a question actually from Margaret, real quick, if I could ask, do you find that watching videos is more impactful than listening to a lecture?
Yes, because you can just always go back to something. If you miss something, you can always just rewind the video and go a little further back and watch it again.
Perfect. Cool. And then in this picture right here that we're looking at on the screen, Kate, that's you down there in the bottom right-hand corner of that screen, isn't it?
That is.
Can you talk a little bit about how you made this video and how long it took you to make it? Oh, is there a bell going off?
Yeah, there's an announcement happening. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Well, we'll come back to it. Okay, so yeah, just real quick, I want to show like a couple pictures here. Minimizing the lecture, you can see that they're using, it looks like Schoology here on the screen to link all of the videos and all of the activities so students always have access to it. But in an elementary classroom, you might see a checklist like there is here on paper. And also videos aren't the end all be all. There's so many other ed tech tools and blended learning tools available. Edpuzzle is one video maker that you can embed questions inside of for students to have interactivity, but Schoology, Seesaw, Google Cloud in the Classroom, Kami, a lot of tools being used in St. Cloud. And I want to point out that Modern Classrooms Project is tech agnostic. Our mentors know all of the tools. So when a teacher signs up to work with us, they can say, oh, I really need help using Canvas or Schoology or Google Classroom. And they can be paired with the mentor who is an expert on that specific tool. Cool. Kate, are you guys still having an announcement?
Nope, we're good.
Okay, so the video that you made, I'll go back to it. How long did it take you to make that and what tool did you use?
I used ScreenPal and Edpuzzle to make my videos. And in this video, it took me, I would say the video was probably 5 to 6 minutes long, and it took me 5 to 6 minutes. So I got in the practice of making the video one time because I wouldn't re-instruct a kid in the middle of class if I had messed up. And so I would just say, yep, we made a mistake and we're going to keep moving with our videos. So, and the kids really enjoyed that aspect of videos. So they didn't mind if you said something wrong or made a mistake. They remembered that teachers are human too. So
Yeah, that's really key. Like you should not be spending hours making short videos. Like a 3-minute video should take 3 minutes to make. And if your dog starts barking, well, guess what? Your students now know you have a dog. And so they shouldn't be professional. They should be personal. So that's our blended model, leveraging the technology in a way that allows for students to actually have less screen time than they might normally and have more time with their teachers working one-on-one or in small groups. Now, the self-pacing is where some people kind of cringe, like, oh my gosh, it'll be chaos. Students are all over the place. And it's not necessarily that way because we're not talking about self-pacing an entire year or semester, but instead just self-pacing like a week or a few units together. And that can be done with a game board like you see on here or a whole class chart. And you may have heard in the video them say must do, should do, and aspire to do. And those categories of lessons are just that. If you're a student who misses a week of school because you're out sick or you're helping take care of family, or maybe you're at like a sporting event, you come back and you want to try to get on pace, you can jump into the must do's in order to hit the learning targets and be able to catch back up because those are what you must do, as what the namesake says. Some teachers use digital trackers that are up on the board. So you kind of come in, students know where they're going next, or they might just have a list like this, which a lot of times when educators see this, it sparks a little bit of an anxiety trigger because you think, oh my, if I'm Thomas or Marcus and I come in and see that I'm on lesson 3 and I'm behind, I'm going to panic, right? But actually what we hear from the students is that Thomas and Marcus come in and then they know they can go to Jamie or Lewis or even Marquise for help because they've moved ahead. And they can also see who else they can collaborate with, like Tim and Ramey and Jermaine and Sam. These aren't real students, by the way. But what we think as adults would be an anxiety trigger is actually a collaboration catalyst. It gets kids working together. This isn't an easy feat, however, to keep track of this. There is a tool, however, we just learned about called Wavio, which was created by a neuroscientist in San Francisco, Dana Kravchuk, and she just made it because her students were in a student-paced learning environment and the teachers were struggling. Her husband's a computer programmer. They got together and said, let's make this tool. And they shared it with us, and we share it with all the educators we work with. It is totally free. So if you want to check this out, it's mywavio.com. I'll put that in the chat. mywavio.com, totally free. Check it out. Easy to set up. You can connect it to your Google Classroom. You can even connect it to what's the thing? Clever. If you have your students in Clever, and you just put all of your lessons in here, and students can mark when they have mastery, when they're ready to move ahead, and they can even communicate with you through the tool. So a student pace tracker alleviates anxiety and creates conditions for collaboration. And then the third part of our model is mastery-based grading. And this is where people really cringe, right? Like, oh no, you're going to get rid of traditional grades. That's not the case at all. All we're saying here is that we use really small mastery checks, like 3 or 4 question quizzes that students can take real quick to know, am I ready to move on to the next part of this lesson? Or do I need to go back and revise, reassess, and reflect? And this picture right here is really what says it all. Teachers spend a lot less time grading in this model, and they spend a lot more time working one-on-one with students and providing the interventions that they need when they need it, rather than a week later after you get the scores back from a quiz. And I see some of the students in St. Cloud are nodding. How do you guys feel about mastery checks? What are you thinking? Is this better or worse than like big 10-question quizzes?
I'm so sorry. There's a passing time and kids are cutting
Another
through
announcement.
so that's why they couldn't hear the question.
Oh, do you want me to wait till
Repeat the question. You can just repeat the question and I'll
Yeah,
tell
sure.
you to listen up here.
Okay, so the question is, how do you feel about mastery checks?
I think I really like mastery checks because I had a teacher for chemistry, and she would like have us like memorize, I think, the elements, or it was something related with that. And I think that really helped me memorize them, because then I will prepare for the mastery check, and then I will like never forget it. Like it was something that really helped me memorize the mastery checks.
Are your mastery checks usually done on paper or are they done on the computer?
It depends on the
It depends. For me on chemistry, they were like oral. I will like the teacher will ask me like personally, like the, let's say like certain compounds or elements, and I will tell her. So it was more like an oral test kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also there were like mastery in paper.
And
And on paper.
like another teacher that we both had was more of a both ways, so it depends on how the lesson was. If it was like about a big essay or just a draft, it will either be on paper if it was a draft, or if it was like the full essay, it will be on the computer.
Okay, so you're talking about both chemistry and language arts or English. So it looks different in different classes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Awesome,
Awesome.
thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, my mastery checks were all on the computer because I had math and she's like having us do like mastery checks on Alex. So that would be how we were. That would be how we would do our mastery checks.
Awesome. So would you get the feedback from your mastery check like the same day or a couple days later? How long does it take?
Usually for LA, it will take some time, like probably like the next day, and I that was something that I really liked about getting feedback and see how can I improve for the next time, or if I can even like if let's say that it didn't go well, I could still improve my grade with the feedback I got.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. One more thing about mastery checks before we move on. Oh, another question from Margaret. Thank you so much. Do the mastery checks feel like a test? What's the difference between a mastery check and a test?
The mastery checks, they're just like little quizzes, so like you could just take them again and again and again. And a test, it depends on your teacher, but I like they're usually like just 1 or 2 retakes.
Okay, so you bring up an interesting point. When you take a test, it's like if you failed, that's too bad, we're moving on. But with the mastery check, if you don't meet mastery, we don't use that word fail so much, but like if you don't meet mastery, you can go back and reassess, That brings up an issue for teachers, right? Because usually you just make one version of a test, but if this student right here was struggling and they had to make a second version, that takes a little bit of time. And so one thing we like to point out is anytime a teacher can use artificial intelligence to free themselves up from doing those kind of menial tasks, like making multiple versions of a quiz or something, and be able to spend more time working with the students, we support that 100%. Some of the partners we work with School AI, some EduAid AI, Magic School. There's a new one called Planning Period, and I understand that in St. Cloud you're using both Class Companion and Magic School. But this is a way that teachers can make like a couple versions of a mastery check. I do want to clarify something though. You don't want to make more than like probably two, because let's say a student takes the mastery check, doesn't meet mastery, reviews all of their notes, meets with you, does some more practice, and still doesn't meet mastery. Well, you've just identified a learning gap as an educator, and all the versions of a test or a quiz in the world are not going to fix that. This is the time to really come in and provide the intervention and the support that the students need. Brad put in a question for later, and with group discussions and what do spontaneous and community moments look like? Those moments where class and life overlap. Good question, Brad. From a math teacher too. I hope you don't go off on a tangent, okay? There's the joke for the day. We're going to throw it over to everybody. I got one chuckle from a student. Yeah. I actually have an interesting slide here that has some kind of like starter questions. If you're in the chat, I'm going to put a link to that slide. And if you're like sort of thinking like, geez, I don't know what kind of questions to ask, here's just some examples to ask students, but I am going to ask them to introduce themselves. I'm going to turn off the screen sharing, and Kate, let you take it away. If you could have the students introduce themselves, what grade they're in, and what they like and don't like about their experience with the Modern Classrooms project so far, then we'll turn it over to questions from our friends in the chat. So, Kate,
All
take
right.
it away.
All right, we have, like I said, we have some excited students here. They were super happy when we watched that video because some of them had Mr. Boker as a teacher, and so that was really fun for them. And so I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. We'll try to kind of keep them in the frame here, and we'll start down here.
My name is Ariani. I am an 11th grader.
And then,
And then
The best listing.
wait.
what classes did you have that your teachers used us?
I had Mr. Walker, so biology, and I have academic writing. That was a English learning class.
And then what was your favorite thing about having a class with Modern Classrooms?
It was easier because it was mostly like self-paced, so it would like take less time sometimes, and then you could just move on if you were done with your assignment.
All right.
And
Do you want to share anything else right now?
no, that's pretty
All
much
right.
it.
Hi, I'm Alexandra. I'm in 12th grade. And I had also Mr. Volker. I had Miss Loeffler for chemistry. She doesn't work here anymore. I had academic writing with Miss Madsen, and um, when I took algebra, my teacher will also use like some aspects of the modern classroom. She will every day that we had a lesson, she will record all the notes, and like if you miss a school, you can always go and look for the lesson you missed and watch the video and do your notes. So that was something that I really liked it. Also move like in your own, like be self-paced and like work on your own time. That was something that I really like about modern classrooms, because I can also organize like better my time like outside and in school.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And the least thing I didn't like about modern classes, it was probably the mastery checks when it comes about like or like kind of like oral testing. Sometimes it was like kind of hard. So that's the only thing.
Awesome. Thank you.
My name is New. I'm a ninth grader, and I had math, which did modern classrooms like stuff. Um, what I liked about it was that, well, we got to watch the videos and they were helpful. And if we like, there were questions along the way because we used Ed puzzles, and you could put down questions for that, and you could answer it along with the video. I also the mastery checks, if I like needed help, like I would raise my hand and my teacher would come and help me. And so if I were to be stuck, I wouldn't have to look back at the videos. I could just ask her for help and get more insight. What I didn't really like was the videos. I actually like listening to a teacher ramble.
Thank you. All right. Is there
Those are great summaries. I love it. You didn't like the videos because you prefer to listen to a teacher ramble on. You've probably not heard about this yet, but there are definitely learning styles or preferences that we all have. And I think we need to acknowledge that some students like videos, some students don't. Some students like talking, some students don't. And I've found in myself that my learning styles change throughout the day. Like if I try to sit down and like have quiet time and read a book at 10 o'clock at night, I fall asleep. But if I do it at 11 in the morning, I have a nice relaxing morning. So I just think we need to acknowledge that like every student has like different opinions about what they like and don't like. And I want to say, I do like Brad's question. Let's go back to that real quick. How do group discussions happen in this modern classrooms model where students are working at their own pace? What do spontaneous and community moments look like? Those moments where class and life overlap. Can you talk a little bit about your experience in the classroom with, just talking to your neighbors, your colleagues, and any type of collaboration?
Oh, okay, I'll start. So we have this thing eye time where we get to talk with each other, and like so each month we would gather, and my math class does like this a lot more. And so we would gather to like together and would like go to a whiteboard, we would write down the questions, we would communicate to each other on how to solve said question, and yeah. Or like we could have like project work with each other and stuff like that.
awesome?
Um, yeah, I think for it was biology where you get like to also like gather together and like have kind of like a discussion to see or to talk about like different topics we had, but somehow they were like still related, and we will like learn about each other, and like that will improve our work, even though if we got like different topics. And for academic writing, I think I remember about
It was
the
mostly based on like what lesson you were on, because you will work with like if you were struggling with something, you will sit on the
Yeah.
table with people that were in the same lesson that you were, and you like they could help you and you could help them at the same time. Same with if somebody was like in a lesson behind you or lessons behind that you've done before, and they could always come up to you and ask you if you need like if you could help them with it.
So it sounds like there's room for like small group projects in your classes. Any experience with that?
Yeah.
So in biology, when there was like big groups of people that were like kind of stuck in one lesson, the teacher would sit with us and help us through it. And same with like just really small group projects where there was one that was like the mix of like how oh my god I'm trying to think of the right word on how like kids are generated, on how there is an X chromosome and there's a Y chromosome, and how it ends up being something else at the end on how they're gonna look. You kind of got to choose your group and work with them, and it was self-paced too, so some groups are doing that and some groups are ahead or behind.
That's a good point. And so if there's any science teachers in the group, can you tell us what the name for that is, where you have like the genetic chart and you're trying to figure out like different attributes and characteristics and how they're passed on? I forget what that's called as well, Ariana. But Also for science teachers, I'm going to just like sort of predict what a lot of science teachers will ask, since I'm not seeing any new questions in the chat. Come on, guys, get some questions in here for these kids. In science, with a lab, I remember being in high school science, it was like, hey, we're going to do this lab on like simple sugars and carbohydrates. Everybody get your Bunsen burner, get your chemicals. And we all had to do the same thing at the same time. How do you do a lab in science when people are working on different lessons? What does that look like?
Well, the teachers always make sure to get everybody in the same lesson before they start a lab.
Oh, okay.
So they give like a week or so for everybody to catch up, and the teachers help the students, or students help students to catch up, and then they do the lab.
I'm going to chime in for a second if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Kate.
So I'm a former science teacher, and in my middle school science class, I actually would have kids go complete the labs when they were on the lab lesson. So they had the lab materials set up, and then I would support them as they worked in the lab, and then other kids would be on their other lessons in the classroom. And then we also have other science teachers in our district using the model who use it, as we've already heard, and they kind of make sure they kind of set a hard deadline in their pacing chart, and they say, by this date, everybody has to be here, and then we're going to have lab day. So we're going to make sure that we can get everybody here. Students who get to that deadline earlier, we'll do some aspire to do activities to kind of stay engaged in the learning if they are already done with all their must dos. So there's kind of two different ways you can approach that in the sciences.
Awesome. And I saw in the video, Kate, you were doing the rock cycle, correct? So you taught geology?
Yep, earth science.
Okay. Yeah, well, we can't take earth science for granted.
No.
That was dad joke number 2. Hey, that's appropriate because you guys are in St. Cloud and you're Granite City, right? So I get one more of those dad jokes in this presentation. Okay, Brad has another follow-up question. How does it make you feel as an individual when you're working in a modern classrooms model, self-pacing? Do you have like a sense of community in the classroom? And like, what does that look and feel like? That's a deep question.
That is.
Well, a modern classroom, well, we're working like by ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Community, I don't think that much, because while you're working by yourself, there's no community, you're just by yourself. But it does help because like it's just like only a few classes that are doing that, and sometimes you just need a little me time. So
Yeah. Are you self-pacing? Like if you have a class for 45 or 90 minutes, are you working on your own like solo the whole time? Or do you have like whole group at the beginning or the end? Ariana, you saying no.
No, because well, I'm going based on my academic writing class, because at the start of the class, our teacher was always just like giving us an introduction to like how the day was, a welcoming, and at the end of the class there was always a exit ticket to where you could either talk to a group, like a little group, on how it was going, or you could just like let her know on what lesson you were on, or if you needed help.
Do you feel like those classes had a sense of community? Like you were able to communicate with the people around you, and that was an enjoyable experience?
Yeah, because she made it based on before you come ask me for help as somebody who's ahead of you that can help you, instead of just like going straight to her. So we would like find somebody that was in our same lesson or a lesson ahead of us that could help us with it.
for my math class, we work solo most of the time. Like we're able to like sit with other people, but my class is pretty small and I don't know that many people, so I just kind of sit by myself, and if I need help, I'll ask her for help. But like most of the time, I just sit and do my own thing.
Yeah, I agree with Ari. It's like you first ask your classmates, for those that like are ahead, if you have some questions, and then like if you think though like they didn't like help a lot, then I go and I ask the teacher. But I feel like those moments where you need help are like the ones that like build community in the classrooms, because you communicate with them, and then then if you don't like, if that wasn't like enough help, then I reached to my teacher. But I think that's something that really helps build community in the classroom with the modern classroom.
Awesome. Thank y'all for sharing.
Yeah, you three are so wise. You just hit on something. You gave me an epiphany. Perhaps the best way to measure community in a classroom is how comfortable students feel asking for help. Um, there are three things that are really hard to say as a human being, whether you're a kid, a student, a teacher, a grown-up. I'm sorry, I need help, and Worcestershire sauce. That's really hard to say too. That's my last dad joke. But I have one more question, Kate. This one's for you. Speaking of asking for help, when you have students that are all over the place, like maybe on like 2 or 3 different lessons, and they're working on 2 or 3 different skills, and they have these moments where there's just this barrier that they can't get over, and they need that zone of proximal development help from you, the teacher, do you just get inundated with students like lined up asking for help, like it's the busiest deli in New York, or what does that look like?
Well, I try to avoid that. That situation in general. It can happen. And I think when that does happen, I kind of just pull all my kids together and we kind of work through the room and people get to listen to each other's questions, and that kind of supports kids in lots of different ways. But one way that I kind of set my classroom up to avoid that is that at the beginning of class, when kids walked in, there was like a little spot on my whiteboard that said, I need help to get started today, or I need help to do something. And they would just go write their name in that spot on the board. So I would know immediately, like, the first person I need to talk to is that kid, because they can't do anything unless I help them. And if I don't help them, then they're not going to be on task because they can't get started. So I really tried to limit that situation as much as possible.
That sounds like a very proactive way to avoid that. Like when you don't have the executive functioning skills. I mean, let's face it, if you're a kid who's gone through like kindergarten through 8th grade, always being told, do this to get this grade, rank, sort, move on. And now all of a sudden you're in 9th grade and you're like in this self-directed learning environment. You would probably at the beginning of class be like, I don't know what I need to get started. I don't know what I'm supposed to be working on. And when kids don't get a help, then they start trying to get attention. So did you find it was like always the same students that you had to work with every start of class, or no?
I didn't personally find that, because I think that we really set up our systems really in a way that kids knew what was to expect of them. So they knew when they came in, they would start here and then do this. So a lot of times it wasn't always the same kids. It was just different kids who were maybe stuck on an assignment, or they were on a mastery check and they forgot what they were supposed to do to get into the mastery check, or get the mastery check. So it was a lot of setting up the structures and the routines that kind of prevented the mom situation from happening.
Lois, somebody watches Family Guy. I don't see any new questions in the chat, so I'm going to go to my bank of questions, and I have a barn burner question for you guys. Tell me about homework in a modern classroom's model environment. What does homework look like?
We don't have homework.
What?
One said no homework.
No homework at all. This is the greatest school district I've ever heard of.
Well, it's not really no homework. It's just most of the things you get it done in class.
Yeah.
Since it's like so self-paced, most of your homework is either the notes or um, the mastery checks or any small assignments. And then you would just check in with your teacher and let them know that you got that done.
Yeah. I think for the only class that I probably got homework was chemistry, and it was just like watch the videos and then probably like feel like on paper, or even like I think academic writing, just like fill the blanks, or doing like equations or not equations, like compounds, something related with chemistry. But with the videos, it wasn't that hard, so it was
So
easy.
you feel like you had enough time in class to complete all the assigned
Yeah.
tasks?
So like we would have work assigned to us, but if we don't finish it, that's homework then. Otherwise, there's no homework. Like if you finish everything, there's no homework.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of like life, right? If you get everything done by Friday at 5, you don't have to log onto your computer over the weekend and update things. You mentioned, and am I saying your name correctly? Ariani?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You mentioned guided notes, and I know what that is because it's in our model, but we didn't talk about that. Can you explain guided notes?
So it's just like following the video, and you have like a paper. Most of the time, that's what Miss Madison did. You had a paper where you just like filled in the notes, and then you will use that for either the mastery check or whatever assignment what was going on afterwards.
So it sounds like you got a busy desk, right? Got a computer in front of you. Maybe you have some headphones on. You've got paper, you got pencil, you got a lot going on. Then you're meeting with other students, you're doing your mastery checks. And if I am correct, Alexandra, you said it helped you with organizing. How
Yeah.
does this model help with you organizing your thoughts and your work?
Well, sometimes if I would like miss a school, I know I wouldn't like worry about that class because I mean, but like in school activities, will I get to miss class a lot sometimes, and it will like help me organize my time after school because I know even though if I miss class, I don't have to wait until the next day that I go and ask what did I miss and then do all that I have to do. But also it help like organizing my time in class because I know how long does it take like the warm ups like at the beginning of the class and then the exit ticket so I know like the time in the middle that I have able to use like how much I can get done in that time.
Gotcha. That's going to be a really valuable skill when you're in either college or a career, military, wherever you're going next. I'm 53, still working on it. So good to hear you've got a jump start. Can I bring up a topic that's like usually second on the like least favorable things for students to talk about? We already talked about homework. How do your grades? How do you get grades in a modern classroom? If you're doing these little mastery checks and you're on different lessons, what does that look like? Do you still get a report card? Are there A's on it? You know, how does that work?
Mm, yeah, I think I remember mastery checks was just like in the 20%
Mastery check was mostly
in the assessments.
no.
No, well,
I can't
well, for
remember.
me, they're in assessment.
We're an assessments based grading. So we have our 80-20% categories. And so I'm going to kind of speak for the kids for just a minute. A lot of our teachers will use the mastery checks in their 80%, and then everything else will sit in that 20%. So the guided notes, the videos, if they're graded, those will all sit in that 20% piece. So when you go to, I'm just going to rephrase this for a second. When you go to your grade book, go to Skyward to look at your grades, are you able to see, and is that, do you feel like that you're being communicated with how well you're doing in the course?
Yeah, because it's like there was always a grade in. The teachers take the weekend, most of the time to grade your homework and see how far you are. And since most of the mastery checks were in the 80%, most of your grade is based on the mastery checks. If you did good in the mastery checks, that's just like mostly technically basically your grade.
Gotcha. Okay. So I put a last call in the chat. If anybody has any questions, throw them in the chat, please, or unmute. And while we wait on that, I have a question for Kate about grades. I'm going to kind of like prime it with some things I've heard from other teachers. Mastery, would you agree, is kind of binary, right? Either you mastered a skill or you didn't, right? So what I've heard, and this was from middle school teachers, is that that bell curve of like, you know, B's and C's kind of inverses. And students are either getting like really good grades, like A's and B's, or they're like really floundering. And what I've heard that's a good thing is that you can tell who is struggling way before it's too late. What kind of experience did you have with grades as you were using this model? Something like that?
Yeah, I did. And it really brought to light what was happening in my classroom, which was really, for me, it was really cool because it was something I hadn't thought about. Like I just kind of let kids shuffle along, but prior to that. And so it was really awesome to see, hey, like this kid didn't get this concept. So we need to like go back and reteach it. So it's really, because everything is in such bite-sized portions and they have those mastery checks, you might have 10 mastery checks before you get to a final assessment or you get to a final project. So you can catch them before they didn't master that first skill, or they can go back and master a skill, if they somehow they did move on to the next skill. So it's really a great way to kind of just hone in and see what do kids need to be successful, because maybe they might already know a skill so they can move on to the next one, and then they can keep moving and then they get stopped, or they didn't know the first skill but they somehow knew the second skill, so now we need to go back and just reteach that first one. So it's just a really good opportunity to look at those bite-sized portions of what students are learning.
Awesome. And while you were talking, one other question came in that's perfect for this topic. Do mastery checks lead up to one large mastery check, like a final exam or quiz or anything like that?
So the kids are all shaking their head, yes. And
Yeah.
as a person who works with people using the model, and supports that, it kind of varies between classes. Some teachers will go and say, yep, we're going to have a final unit assessment still. And other teachers will say, I can clearly see that they've demonstrated this skill or this objective. And so we don't need to have another assessment looking at that. But I'll let the kids kind of say something if they have anything to share about that.
So in our academic writing class, it was mostly working up to being able to build, like to write a whole essay. So every mastery check was a like minor on each part of an essay. So at the end of the year, like, or at the end of the trimester, you were able to do the final assessment that was a full written essay based on what you learned throughout the trimester.
That's a
Yeah.
performance-based assessment. That's awesome. Okay. Um, Anybody else that wanted to add to that? We're good.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's like the teacher wants to make sure you're ready to take the big project or like assessment. And yeah, that's something that the mastery checks really helps, like for projects or whatever, that it's like a big assessment.
And then in biology, it was more like you master this part, then you can move on to the next part. And so it depends on how the teacher wants it. It depends on what the class is and based on what you're supposed to be learning.
Got it. Well, we have just a couple minutes left, and I just want to wrap up by sharing a little bit more information with our audience. But before I do that, I want to say thank you to Ms. Klug, Kate, thank you so much for being here, and to Ariani, Alexandra, and New. Everybody give them a little, like, let's see if this will happen. Do we get the, like, oh, look at the hearts. Yay, get some lasers going. Appreciation, everyone. You guys were fantastic. I know that, oh, Amy just put in there about our schedule, but I just have a couple last things to share with everybody about modern classrooms, and then we will wrap up here in just a second. But Kate, 742 St. Cloud, thanks again. In St. Cloud, 60 of their teachers went through our free course. 90 have gone through our virtual mentorship, and that's in 15 of their schools. And I think, Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, you have 20, 21 schools. So the majority of schools have at least one teacher who is doing the Modern Classrooms project. And we do find that when teachers collaborate together, like if a group of fifth grade teachers do this together, or one department in a secondary school, there's just a lot of collective efficacy and everybody starts to share the resources that they're making. If you're interested in our program, we do have a free course. You'll find it on our website, modernclassrooms.org, and there'll be a little link there, and it'll take you to learn.modernclassrooms.org. You can sign up for our free course, move through it at your own pace, just like the model. It takes about maybe 3 to 5 hours. But if you were to do the virtual mentorship program, now we're talking about something that takes like 25 to 30 hours. And this is done over 5 weeks in the summer, or 12 weeks during the school year. And you are paired with a mentor, somebody who teaches your subject area using your LMS, and they can share resources with you that you need. I'm just checking the chat. Got some thanks coming in. Keep them coming. Yeah, that free course, there it is. You can go to modernclassrooms.org/free course or learn.modernclassrooms.org and just take your time moving through it. The big differences between the two, you have the exact same content in tutorials in both, but the VMP is where you're going to get the feedback on the assignments that you submit, one-on-one coaching, and certified credentials. And it's really important to point out that everything you make in the virtual mentorship program is something that you can then use with your students in your classroom. So you're actually like doing professional development while you're professionaling, is the way I like to say that. That costs $750 per seat, but here's the nice thing about Minnesota. The Bush Foundation is paying for it. And not only are they paying for it, but you get a $500 stipend upon completion. If you're interested in signing up for that this summer, go to modernclassrooms.org/VMP/Minnesota. I'll put that in the chat as well. modernclassrooms.org/VMP stands for Virtual Mentorship Program, and then Minnesota. And if there's anybody in here that's from South Dakota or North Dakota, same thing. They're eligible for the same scholarship. It's just put in North Dakota or South Dakota at the end. We also have scholarships in Oakland and Los Angeles Unified, Chicago, all over the place. If you are interested in a scholarship, check it out. And if you don't see one for your area, you can contact me. There I am, standing in the woods in Utah, in my plaid shirt. My email, I'll put that in the chat as well, is michael.hakarainen. That's a Finnish name, and I'm just getting started. Oh, that's 4 dad jokes, sorry. michael.hakarainen@modernclassrooms.org. Please email me if you have any questions or if you'd like us to partner with you and support you. Again, we are a nonprofit, and we are an opt-in program, and we just love working with teachers who see the vision and the benefits of student-centered learning. So with that, Kate, I know you got to let the students go back to class or to their lunch. Is that correct?
Yes, they're headed to lunch.
Okay. And thank you for your patience, and Kate, for organizing the students and bringing them together and all the work that you do. I look forward to working with you. We're going to have a site visit in November, right? And your knee will be all healed up by then?
It will be.
Okay, awesome. We'll go for a bike ride. And Amy, thank you for hosting
Thank
and
you.
recording. Are there any last questions from the audience or anything before we say have a nice lunch? Crickets.
If we don't have any questions, a huge thank you to Michael and Kate and your students. I love having students be able to speak about the work directly. It's always super impactful. Thank you for everyone who's joining. We will be back in the same plenary link, Zoom link, in about 30 minutes. Give everyone time to grab some lunch and have a body break. And I will see you all in a half hour. Thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.